They're so strange. Such a strange animal. But the ocean is so bizarre in and of itself.
For years, deep-sea divers have worked in some of the most dangerous places on Earth, fixing pipelines and equipment far below the surface where sunlight barely reaches. They are trained to stay calm, trust their gear, and never panic, no matter what moves in the dark water around them. Robert Kensington was the same kind of diver, someone who had spent years descending into the cold, but one afternoon ended his career in the middle of a normal shift. After something happened 180 feet down, something so strange that when he resurfaced, he filed his report, walked away from the job, and never returned to deep water again. So what did he see down there? And how did a single moment in the darkness convince a seasoned diver to abandon his lifelong career? Let's dive in. The zone of silence routine dives are built on planning and trust. Every task begins the same way because predictability keeps people alive. A diver trusts his equipment because it has been checked twice. The surface team trusts the diver because they know his record. Everyone follows the same sequence: descend, inspect, report, return. That repetition is what makes dangerous work feel controlled. Robert Kensington had earned that trust over years of offshore work. He had handled rough currents, low visibility, and long shifts without incident. Because of that history, when a routine pipeline inspection was scheduled that afternoon, sending Robert down felt like the safest decision possible. He entered the water just after 2 p.m., beginning his descent along the support line. His air pressure was stable, his communication line was clear, and the surface team monitored every number as he moved downward. Since everything looked normal, no one expected anything unusual. He reached the pipeline without difficulty. The water was clearer than it had been all week, which made the job easier. Small fish drifted around the structure, and sunlight filtered down far enough that he didn't need his primary light yet. Because conditions were calm, he clipped himself into position and started inspecting bolts and joints, marking brief notes on his slate. That calm is what made the change noticeable. About 20 minutes into the inspection, he sensed a shift in the current. At first, he assumed it was minor, something natural. But when he looked up from his work, he realized the fish were gone. Now, fish don't disappear without reason. Their absence forced him to stop writing. If smaller marine life had cleared the area, something larger might be approaching. That possibility made him listen more closely. And that was when he noticed the silence. Normally, even at that depth, there are sounds. Faint clicking, distant engine hum, the soft movement of water against metal. But now there was nothing beyond the steady rhythm of his own breathing inside the helmet. The silence didn't just feel quiet. It felt deliberate. The emptiness in the water, the vanished fish, the unnatural stillness. Each detail pointed to the same conclusion: something had entered the area. The first sign: when Robert turned away from the pipeline and faced the open water, he expected to find something ordinary. A passing shark, a large grouper, even a drifting shadow would have been enough to explain why the fish had vanished and the noise had stopped. But there was nothing. The water in front of him stretched out empty and darker than it should have been at that depth. Because he needed clarity, he reached for his dive light. The beam cut through the water, revealing suspended particles drifting lazily in the current. It caught the edge of the pipeline behind him. Metal, bolts, nothing else. The absence of anything concrete made the unease worse. Without realizing it, his breathing began to speed up. The sound filled his helmet, growing louder, more confined. He paused his work and focused on slowing his breath, because fast breathing uses more air and can lead to mistakes. As he did so, he noticed another change. The faint vibration divers often feel from surface machines through the line was gone. It felt like the connection to the world above had thinned out. He pressed the talk button and called the surface team, giving a short status update like he always did. No one answered. He tried again, a little louder this time, but there was still only the sound of his own breathing. He checked his gauges and wires by hand. Everything looked connected and working, but something still felt off. At first, he thought it might be a tool. At first, he thought it might be a tool light or a small vehicle, but the color didn't look right, and the light didn't shine in a straight beam like normal equipment. The glow pulsed in a slow, steady pattern, bright, then dim, then bright again, and it spread through the water in a wide circle. He checked his depth and position once more to make sure he had not drifted into a different work area, but he was still close to the same section of pipeline. His gauges still looked normal, which made the strange light feel even more out of place. He wanted to swim up faster, but he knew that would be dangerous. Coming up too quickly from that depth can cause serious problems in the body because of pressure changes. So he began a slow, careful ascent, using small bursts of air in his vest. While he moved up, he kept watching the light below. The strange part was how the glow moved. It rose toward him smoothly, without stirring up sand or creating strong currents the way a large animal would. There were no bubbles, no noise, and no sign of propellers or fins. As it came closer, the light stopped looking like a simple glow and started to show edges and angles, as it belonged to a solid shape, the mysterious shape. As the glow sharpened into clear edges and flat sides, Robert realized he was no longer looking at a simple light source, but at a solid form that gave off its own glow. The shape did not look like a fish, a submersible, or any tool he had seen in years of diving around rigs and pipelines. It looked wide and uneven, with parts that seemed to shift position slowly, without any clear movement, like fins or propellers pushing water. He could not see joints, eyes, or a clear front or back, which made it hard for his brain to label what he was seeing. The surface looked smooth in some places and darker in others, as if panels were turning at different angles. He checked around himself again, expecting sand clouds or a strong push of water from something that size moving upward, but the water stayed strangely calm. The images inside his mind. While that strange shape stayed below him, Robert kept doing what he was trained to do during ascent. He held onto the line, watched his depth, and followed his decompression stops step by step. His dive computer, air gauge, and timer were all working, so he forced himself to focus on numbers and procedure instead of panic. But as he hung there in the water, something else started happening that he later described in a very specific way. He began seeing clear mental pictures that did not feel like normal memories. He saw the Poseidon rig from below, the support boat tied off at the side, and the pipeline junction he had just inspected. The strange part was the angle of these images. They looked as if they were being viewed from deep underwater. Looking up, then the images became more personal. The glowing shape stayed below, not rushing him, not leaving either. When he finally reached the surface and climbed onto the deck, he told his story in detail, using names, places, and exact steps from the dive. He quit that same day because he believed something down there was not just alive, but aware of the people on the rig. Robert Kensington never went back underwater after that shift. He packed a small bag, left the rig, and later moved far from the ocean, choosing work on dry land where he did not have to think about deep water or long descents. But he told his story the same way every time, using the same details about the silence, the light, and the images. So what do you think he really faced at 180 feet below the ocean? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked this video, ensure you give it a thumbs up. Also, consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, because we will be uploading more crazy stories like this one in the coming weeks. Until then, see ya.